In 1796, a poor widow sends her son Jake to sell their only cow in order to get money to pay a doctor to treat her sick daughter. However, when Jake returns, he reveals that he traded the cow for magic beans. His brother Will becomes furious and begins to beat him, blaming him for their sister's death. 15 years later, in French-occupied Germany, Will and Jake Grimm are now adults and arrive in the town of Karlstadt. They go to the mayor's office to hear the story of a witch who is said to be haunting the local mill, and all the details are written down by Jake in his book, where he collects tales from all over the country. This particular case sounds quite difficult, but they are willing to take it on if they are paid well. The mayor is surprised by the amount of money the brothers ask for, but since they are the only ones who can do it, he agrees. Jake and Will go to the mill with the owner and prepare everything, including drawing a 5-pointed star on the floor, putting on armor, and filling their arrows with baby tears. However, the witch's ghost appears before they are ready, so they have to improvise a bit. After stumbling around the mill with the wrong choice of tools, the brothers finally find the right spot to aim their gun and crossbow at the witch, who uses her magic to make them attack each other with their weapons. Fortunately, they have a lot of experience dealing with this, so they free themselves from her control and manage to shoot her. Her body turns into a pile of snakes, so Jake puts them into a bag and tells the mill owner to seal it inside a mirror-lined box and then bury it far away from any river. The man leaves after paying them, and as soon as he is out of sight, Jake complains about this degrading job because he used to be a scholar. When Will replies that being famous is better, the details of the job come to light. There was never anything supernatural in the mill. The witch and the magic were tricks carried out by the brothers' accomplices, Hidlik and Bunst, who also receive part of the payment. The Grimm brothers go from village to village creating chaos, using special effects and Jake's knowledge of myths. Then they ask the locals to get rid of it. Meanwhile, in the forest of Marbedon, a girl wearing a red cloak is picking flowers when she hears a growl behind her. When a tree begins to move on its own, the girl runs away, but before she can return to the village, the beast jumps on her. All that is left is her red cloak caught in the branches of a tree. Back in Karlstadt, the brothers are celebrating their success at an inn. However, when they go to sleep, a group of French soldiers and the Italian torturer Mercurio Cavaldi approach them and tie the brothers to their horses so they can drag them across the floor of the inn. The next morning, they are taken to see General Vavarin de Latom, who has already captured Hidlik and Bunst and forced them to confess everything. De Latom wants to execute the brothers for all the lies and the theft, but he is willing to spare them if they can help with a small problem. In the town of Marbedon, children continue to disappear, and the culprit also uses tricks to make it look like magic. The brothers, of course, agree to solve the mystery. In the forests of Marbedon, 2 more children get lost while trying to find the missing girls, although the boy leaves a trail of breadcrumbs behind him. Distracted by the possibility of finding a witch's gingerbread house, the girl separates from her brother and loses her shawl when a branch pulls it from her shoulders. She chases it downstream until it gets stuck in a hole filled with insects, and it is then that the huntsman finds her. The next day, Cavaldi takes the Grimms to Marbedon, where they are greeted by cautious villagers holding weapons in their hands. However, when they mention their name, the young woman Sasha speaks in their defense, saying that she has heard of their heroism. The villagers accept their help and tell the brothers all the details of the disappearances. While Jake writes everything down, Will cannot help but notice how expensive it would be to carry out such advanced tricks. However, to begin working, they will need someone who knows the forest well, so the villagers send them to see the trapper, whom they believe to be cursed. This trapper turns out to be a huntress named Angelica, whose sisters have also been kidnapped. At first, she does not want to help, but she changes her mind when the brothers promise that they are capable of saving the children, and Cavaldi becomes a bit violent. Unaware that the huntsman is following them, the group enters the forest, and Angelica asks them to leave the horses behind for the final stretch. Eventually, they reach a very tall tower with no entrance, surrounded by crypts. Angelica tells Jake the whole story as her father used to tell it. The Christian king destroyed the forest people and burned everything to build a city. This king was married to the Mirror Queen, who was beautiful and adored by everyone, but also very vain. When the plague arrived and took the king, the queen built the tower and locked herself inside, safe from the horrors below. However, the wind carried the plague to her as well, and everyone in the area could hear her scream when she began to rot. Since the plague destroyed the city, the forest grew back around the tower. While the huntsman feeds one of his horses some tiny spiders, Jake cannot shake a feeling of dread and is frightened when he notices a tree moving on its own. The group finds itself surrounded by insects and crows, so Angelica decides it is time to leave. Will is confused by the direction she takes, since it is not the way they came from, but Angelica reminds him that they must not trust the trees. She then takes a toad and licks it, saying that this is the kiss for the grandmother toad, so it will guide them through the forest. Following the toad's instructions, they return safely to their horses, and Jake notices that his is behaving strangely. When they return to the town, Angelica tells the brothers that she will not go back into the forest with them. Her father had been taken by wolves, and shortly afterward her sisters were the first girls to disappear, so everyone calls her cursed. Will insults her and an argument breaks out, ending with Angelica deciding that she will search on her own. After night falls, Jake's horse begins to moan loudly in the stables. A small girl hears it and believes she can also make out a voice calling for help, so she goes to check on the horse and comments on how big its eyes and mouth are. Suddenly, she is horrified to see that the horse's mouth is filled with spiderwebs, and the animal opens it wide enough to swallow her whole. The Grimm brothers hear the girl scream and go to look for her, but they are terrified when they find the horse with an enormous belly and the girl trapped in its throat. As the horse runs toward the forest, the brothers begin arguing about how such a trick could have been carried out, but they drop the subject when they see Angelica passing by. The entire group decides to follow her into the forest to save the girl, but the trees begin to move to stop them and even kill some of Cavaldi's men. Angelica manages to free herself from the branches and encounters a wolf, which she begins to chase in order to avenge her father. However, when it approaches her, it does not attack because it seems to recognize her, and Angelica believes she can see intelligence in its eyes before it runs away. The group returns to the town, and Jake begins to believe in magic. Will insists that it is a trick, and Cavaldi agrees, blaming them for the deaths of his men. Sometime later, Cavaldi goes to see Dilatom to tell him what happened and to request that the Grimms and Angelica be punished using his special machines. Jake is not believed when he says the forest is cursed, so to save their lives, he changes the story and tells Dilatom that the entire situation has been a secret plan by German rebels. Politically obsessed as he is, Dilatom agrees to free them and send them back to Marbedon to finish the job, but with one condition. If they fail again or try to escape, he will burn the town and the forest to find them. The Grimms return to Marbedon with Cavaldi, Hidlik, and Bunst. Will thinks they should try to escape, but Jake has other ideas. He remembers hearing the story of the tower before, which ends with the queen using a spell for eternal life. This means she is still in the tower right now, waiting for someone to help her and find the final spell. Jake asks Angelica for help, but Will interrupts and insults him for living inside a story that is not real, just as happened with the magic beans. Hurt, Jake runs alone into the forest, which is extremely dangerous. Angelica and Will try to go after him, but Cavaldi suddenly appears and captures Angelica, so she will stay with him and ensure that the brothers return. In the forest, Jake tests a catapult with Hidlik and Bunst as a possible way to enter the tower. Will arrives to stop them, so an enraged Jake punches him, tired of his brother always taking everything away from him. Throughout his life, Jake studied fairy tales, and now he has found one that is real. All he needs is for his brother to support him and believe in him. Will finally admits that he has been acting like an idiot and agrees to help by offering an idea. Instead of the catapult, they should use a grappling hook and rope to climb the tower. Frightened by the swarm of insects surrounding them, Hidlik and Bunst run back to the town, where Sasha is drawing water from the well. However, inside the bucket she finds something else, a crow that begins throwing mud at her. When she wipes her face clean, she discovers that her mouth and eyes are missing, while something else emerges from the bucket. a mass of mud that takes the shape of the gingerbread man. Everyone in the town comes out when they hear that Sasha is in trouble, including Angelica and Cavaldi, but no matter what they hit the little mud man with, it reforms itself. Impossible to stop, the gingerbread man stretches out his arms and grabs Sasha, absorbing her into his body before running toward the forest. Back in the forest, Jake is climbing the tower while Will keeps the rope tied to a wheel on the ground. However, the rope snaps and Jake almost falls. Luckily, he manages to grab onto the roof just in time. When he reaches the top of the tower, Jake looks around and discovers 12 crypts evenly spaced in a circle like the face of a clock. He then enters the tower through a window and finds many interesting things inside: the queen's crown, her throne, and a spell book showing the blood moon with 12 crypts, making Jake realize that 11 girls have disappeared so far. Meanwhile, Will begins to hear strange noises around him, so he takes Grandmother Toad and licks her, asking her to guide him to Angelica's house. However, his plans change when he suddenly sees Sasha appear in a small lake near the tower, and the wolf also enters, transforming into the huntsman. Will hides and watches as the huntsman picks up Sasha and places her inside the final crypt, saying it is for his queen. As soon as he leaves, Will rushes to pull Sasha out, but the huntsman quickly reappears and attacks Will with his axe. Things also become terrifying for Jake, because he finds the queen's bed and her rotting body lying on it. When she suddenly moves, he tries to flee and crashes into a huge mirror, where the queen, young and healthy, calls him by name. In the reflection, she appears behind Jake and embraces him, promising to make his dreams come true. It almost works, and Jake is about to fall under her spell when the mirror suddenly shatters after Will, fleeing from the huntsman, throws a stone through the window. Jake uses the queen's extremely long hair to jump and land safely on the huntsman, knocking him unconscious just before he hurts Will. After grabbing the huntsman's axe and Sasha, the brothers flee by following the toad's directions. Tree branches try to stop them, but the huntsman's axe works like a spell that keeps them away while Jake explains the queen's spell. She had granted herself eternal life but not eternal youth, so she needed an additional spell to have both. The Grimm brothers return to the town and try to warn everyone of the danger ahead. That night there will be an eclipse, and the queen needs a 12th girl for her spell, so everyone should leave and hide their children in the city. However, before they can make any progress, Dilatom arrives with his troops and the bodies of Hidlik and Bunst. Keeping his word, he proceeds to arrest the Grimm brothers for lying and stealing, and they drop the axe to the ground before being taken into the forest. There they are tied up while the soldiers set the trees on fire along with Jake's storybook, and Dilatom watches the flames spread, believing he has won. However, Angelica retrieves the axe from the ground and uses it to escape from the soldiers and rescue the brothers. The three run deep into the forest and encounter the wolf, which transforms into the huntsman, and Angelica recognizes him as her father. All this time, he has been under the queen's spell, which is why he has been kidnapping girls for her. The huntsman retrieves his axe with the intention of hurting his daughter, but the Grimm brothers intervene to help her. Will tries to distract him with fire while Jake grabs Angelica, but she breaks free and falls into a lake that the huntsman immediately freezes. He then transforms back into the wolf and runs toward the tower while Jake breaks the ice, but it is too late. Angelica is now the 12th girl. The queen awakens and uses her magic to extinguish the fire, creating winds so strong that they terrify the villagers and most of the troops. Dilatom shoots those who flee for cowardice, but stops when the smoke clears, and he sees that the Grimm brothers' bodies are gone, which Cavaldi calls a miracle. Meanwhile, the brothers run to the tower and watch as the huntsman places Angelica into the final crypt before a flock of crows carries him to the queen. Once he is gone, Will and Jake try to open the crypt again, but neither force nor the axe works. They are about to try their own tools when Dilatom appears with Cavaldi and his servant, ready to get rid of the Grimms. Dilatom orders Cavaldi to shoot them, but he refuses, so the general shoots him instead. When Dilatom turns to shoot the brothers, a branch grabs his feet, and Jake seizes the moment to push him before running away. The servant chases Jake and dodges the axe when Jake throws it, but just as the man is about to strike, he is killed by the axe's spell as it returns like a boomerang. Afterward, Jake begins preparing the catapult while Will fights Dilatom. After many failed attacks, it seems the general has the upper hand, but Will finds one of his trick crosses and presses a button to ignite it. Forcing Dilatom back with the flame, Will kills him with his own flagpole, throwing him down the stone steps they are standing on. The movement causes the steps to collapse and strike the catapult, sending Jake through the window to find the huntsman preparing the queen for the final spell. Jake tries to stop them, but the queen uses magic to push the axe away and does the same to Jake when he grabs a sword he finds in the room. He is now pinned against the wall, but the queen's hair becomes tangled around his body and pulls her out the window, allowing Will to climb up as well. Grabbing a dagger, Will also tries to attack the queen, but she uses her magic again to make the brothers fight each other, causing Jake to accidentally stab Will. The queen then frees Jake from the spell, but continues controlling Will to turn him into her servant. She takes the stake that has been in the huntsman's chest the entire time and stabs Will with it, ordering him to complete the spell. While she is distracted, Jake retrieves the axe and destroys the mirror, which causes the queen to shatter into pieces as well. Now freed from her control, the huntsman wants to avenge his daughters, so he sacrifices himself by jumping out the window with the last fragment of the mirror, and Will jumps after him to try to save his master. When the queen finally dies, the tower collapses. Jake survives thanks to the queen's many mattresses, while Will's unconscious body is pulled out of harm's way by Cavaldi, who survived the general's gunshot because he had been wearing the Grimm's armor under his clothes. The eclipse is not yet over, so Cavaldi reminds Jake how the story ends, with a true love's kiss. Jake runs to Angelica's crypt and kisses her, successfully waking her and the other 11 girls. Will is next, but when Jake is about to kiss him, Will whispers that he is not the one who should do it, so Angelica arrives and gives him the kiss. It is morning when the group returns to the town with all the girls. The villagers do not hesitate to throw a celebration to mark the end of the ordeal, and Cavaldi returns Jake's notebook, which he saved from the fire. The brothers apologize for not believing in each other and begin discussing new job ideas as they join the celebration, while a crow flies overhead carrying a fragment of the mirror with the queen's eyes in its beak.